London fog has a reputation. It makes the city feel mysterious, dramatic, and occasionally like someone forgot to pay the electricity bill. In the autumn of 1888, the fog covered something far more unsettling. Residents no longer worried about pickpockets or the occasional drunk sailor. They worried about a man who could walk beside you, nod politely, and vanish before you felt anything was wrong. 5 women were found with injuries so violent that seasoned police officers needed a moment to steady themselves. Newspapers printed every gory detail. Readers bought every copy. Reporters sprinted through Whitechapel like they were competing in a Victorian fitness challenge. The killer earned a nickname that sounded like it belonged in a cheap penny novel: Jack the Ripper. The name stuck to the case like soot to a chimney. You may think you know the story. You may have seen the documentaries. You may have heard the theories. Yet the strangest part is not the murders. It is how many people claimed they solved the case, only to have their theories collapse faster than a London umbrella in a storm. Today, you and your curiosity are walking straight into Whitechapel. Try not to lag behind. The fog can play tricks. Today, we take you through the real history of Jack the Ripper. No myths, no inflated legends. You will see the events, unusual details, and the bizarre twists that made investigators question everything. By the end, you will understand why this case still shapes modern criminology. Picture London in 1888. Whitechapel is crowded, loud, and unforgiving. More than 90,000 residents squeeze into narrow streets and smoky rooms. Many rent a bed by the night in lodging houses that feel more like storage units. The streets are dire, and the police force struggles to keep up as crime moves through the alleys with confidence. The women who later became victims lived in a world where survival meant improvisation. Wages were low, and housing was unstable. The environment felt dangerous long before the murders began. When the first killing happened, the community did not panic. Whitechapel had seen violence before, but not at this scale. August 31st, 1888. A body is found at 3:40 a.m. Mary Ann Nichols. Officers arrived with the little equipment they had. One officer carried a lantern with a flame so tiny it barely beat a candle. Imagine investigating a brutal murder while your main light source could be blown out by a short sigh. The injury suggested someone worked with speed and intention, not the actions of a drunk attacker. The officers tried to treat it as a single incident, but this illusion ended quickly when a second victim appeared a week later. A pattern began to reveal something far worse. September 30th, 1888. 2 murders on the same night: Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. Stride's injuries were far less severe. Many historians believe the killer was interrupted, while others think she may not have been a Ripper victim at all. Eddowes left little room for doubt. Her injuries matched the earlier murder. This night changed the tone of the investigation as the killer took risks and moved with confidence. He knew the streets as he moved as if the darkness belonged to him. Picture this: 2 victims in one night. Separate locations, different timelines. If you were mapping this on screen, you could draw 2 small clocks ticking in opposite corners. Both reach 0 before sunrise. That is how investigators felt. They ran a race with no idea where the finish line was. During the investigation, newspapers received letters signed Jack the Ripper. The name stuck because newspapers repeated it endlessly. Many of the letters were hoaxes. Reporters wanted to boost sales, and competition was vicious. If social media existed at the time, trending hashtags would have collapsed. One letter stands out: the "From Hell" letter. It arrived with half a human kidney. Doctors confirmed the kidney belonged to a woman who matched the victim's profile. Some historians believe it came from the killer. Others think it was a prank by medical students. Either way, it gave the Ripper his legendary status. November 9th, 1888. Mary Jane Kelly. She was found indoors, which meant the killer had time. The injuries were far more severe because nothing interrupted him. This scene convinced many that the killer had surgical skill. Others argued that any determined person could have caused similar injuries. Victorian coroners did not agree on much. After Kelly's murder, the killing stopped. No warnings, no letters, just silence. Killers rarely stop unless something forces them to. This sparked new theories and endless debates. So what happened? Picture a detective board filled with names, dates, and red threads. All the threads trail off into the fog and never loop back. That is what the police faced. The suspect list was enormous. More than 100 names suggested. Only a few suspects gained serious attention. Montague Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher who died shortly after the final murder. Some officers believed his death stopped the killings, but there is no evidence he had a violent past. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber with a history of mental health issues. DNA testing on a shawl in 2014 suggested a match, although the testing process has been criticized for contamination and poor controls. Dr. William Gull, a respected physician dragged into a theory involving royal secrecy. Historians reject that theory because no credible evidence connects him to the murders. James Maybrick, a Victorian merchant whose diary appeared in 1992. It claimed he was Jack the Ripper, but experts found inconsistencies that point to forgery. Walter Sickert, an artist who painted scenes that some people interpret as confessions. Modern analysis debunked most claims against him. Each theory found followers but no solid evidence. This uncertainty is what keeps the case alive. Several factors worked in the killer's favor. Whitechapel streets were confusing and lighting was weak. Police had limited tools and fingerprints were not used in Britain until 1901. Crime scenes were often swarmed by curious crowds before police had a chance to secure the crime scenes. Newspaper blurred facts and witness statements conflicted. Descriptions of the killer varied so wildly that if you lined up the police sketches, you might think they were describing all men in a hat with a mustache. The killer blended in. A man walking alone at night was nothing unusual in Whitechapel. Imagine a modern detective transported into 1888. No CCTV, no fingerprint files, not even reliable street lighting. It feels like trying to build a puzzle blindfolded, with most of the pieces missing. Jack the Ripper changed how people think about crime. This was not the first serial killer in history. He became famous because of timing. Newspapers were cheaper, literacy was rising, and people devoured shocking news. It created one of the first global media frenzies. The case shaped criminal profiling. It influenced investigative methods and inspired countless theories that fill libraries and late-night debates. More than a century later, the story still pulls people in because the ending never arrived. The mystery sits in the fog, untouched by time. The fog of Whitechapel hides many things: pain, poverty, desperation, and worst of all, it hides the identity of a killer who walked away clean. Comment which Ripper suspect you think deserves a deeper investigation. Your suggestion can help shape the next episode. If you want more true historical mysteries, press like so we know you want more strange chapters, and subscribe to follow each new investigation.
Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep exploring mysteries from history that are stranger than fiction.